SFJ 4x4 Studios presents
in my oversized four-wheel drive Jeep.
a Jeep podcast starring industry experts.
Pure monosity. What? Say that again.
With mad scientist Scott Brown,
Use my drill press as a sort of lathe.
our host Neil Simpson,
If one light goes out, they all go out.
filled with shenanigans.
We are really professional with Jeeps.
This is I Speak Jeep.
Good morning, afternoon, evening, wherever, however you are joining us. This is the I Speak Jeep podcast presented by SFJ4x4.com. My name is Neil with SFJ4x4 Simpson Family Jeeps, and I am joined in Grandma's Couch Studio.
Jeff Shermani.
Sick as a dog.
Are you sure?
Nope, I'm not sure.
Was off work on Saturday, folks. He should have been off work again today, and so if I get sick, I'm myself and Greg are the last to fall.
Mm-hmm.
So if I get sick, it's because of today's podcast. But
Where Scott is somehow still sick, so you're stuck between two of us.
I am, but we're doing this for you, our listeners. Just so you know that I'm putting myself in harm's way.
Davey was ground zero.
Davey was ground zero.
Isn't he always?
Oh, that's true. The Savage is absolutely ground zero every time there's a sickness.
Mm-hmm.
It used to be me. I get it.
Yeah. So
Well, this guy didn't get introduced.
we got-
Who's the other person in the room with us?
the guy that helped build the sign.
All right. That tracks.
The maddest mad scientist, and today I was steering stabilizer bracket fabric cobbler.
That was some good fabric cobbling. So what do we got in the comments there?
In the comments, we got Giaga Jeeper saying, good morning, SFJ. So he was first. Joe O'Brien, good morning. Billy Joe saying, good morning, everyone. Nathan saying, good morning. Yvonne saying, have a great morning. Nathan saying, it's Trail Hero Week. Can't wait to get there on Wednesday. Anyone else going? Bill McWilliams says, good morning. Robert Seaman says, morning all. Daddy Jeep says, good morning. And Mike Lentz says, good morning.
Good morning to everybody. Thank you for joining us. If you are listening in your ear holes at a later date, when this is, uploaded to your favorite streaming platform, first and foremost, we thank you sincerely for prioritizing this program as part of your infotainment.
I'm going to give a shout out additional. Not only do we thank you for listening, but we thank you for keeping us honest if we don't have the episode uploaded immediately on Wednesdays.
Yeah, you dropped the ball, Jeff.
We absolutely got called out. What was it, a week ago, 2 weeks ago?
Somewhere within the last week or two.
Yeah.
Yes.
Absolutely got called out because I didn't have it up at midnight.
Yep, you did a thing. So, or didn't do a thing, I guess. Quite literally.
Didn't do a thing, yeah.
So, yeah, thank you for keeping us honest in the process and letting us know that you appreciate what it is that we're bringing to the Jeep and off-road community. With that said, we're still waiting for penguins to listen to us. So if you know anybody in Antarctica, spread the message. 6 out of 7 continents, 90-some countries, all because of you, our fantastic listening base. Arguably one of the fastest growing Jeep and off-road specific podcasts in the podcasting realm.
Well, and
with that, make sure you go out and leave us a review.
Charles is also saying good morning from Texas.
Good morning in Texas.
You know what they really need in Antarctica?
A purple recovery strap.
They do.
Two little penguins, kind of tugging each other along with the purple recovery strap.
I support the penguins.
We are going to be relaunching our swag pack giveaway with Scott's famous and favorite Harbor Freight 2-inch recovery strap.
Mm-hmm.
And
you say
some other goodies.
But more like continuing.
We are
have a
continuing.
Second one.
Right. So if you missed out on the opportunity to leave us a review on your favorite streaming platform, do it now. And then screenshot it and send it via email to contact, CONTACT, at SFJ4x4, or text us on our text-only number, 440-855-2100, and send us a picture of your review to get entered into this. We'll read it on air as well, typically speaking.
Roy says good morning, and Beth says Archie says good morning.
Oh, good morning to my nephew Archie as well. All right, so we are going to be discussing winching 101. And oftentimes, winch accessories are, or winching is one of those kind of given things. And we touch on it in little aspects, and we have absolutely talked about it in part in previous episodes.
But I was thinking like this one should be for the new ones. Maybe someone just got into Jeeps or they haven't yet bought a winch. Why do you want one? How do you put it on your vehicle? And what would you use it for?
I think that's great because then there's also opportunity. I did a YouTube's video about a year ago, a little less actually. Honestly, it was in the winter, so a little less than a year ago, where I did a winch. We used Born off-road, and we can talk a little bit about that. And then I did it in an unconventional manner for a multitude of reasons.
You say I do stuff weird.
Yeah. So we'll talk a little bit about that because we've never actually talked about it.
Because you're weird. He does stuff weird because he wants to see how dumb he can make it.
That's fair.
That's not out of the question. I mean, that's not out of the question. I want to spark conversation.
Well, you like to push the limits and see how far you can take something. So
that is absolutely true.
This is not meant to do this. I'm going to make it work.
I am going to push the red button.
Work.
Huh, that's fascinating.
Joe says winches are great. I use it to recover other people all the time.
Fair.
I love that he put other people.
Yes.
And then Charles said he's using Harbor Freight Icon tools right now, tearing down a 5.3. And we'll talk about the Harbor Freight winch today as well.
Yes. Yep. Crowd favorite by today's standards. So where do you want to start us, Scott, since this was within a degree your concept?
I think it's important to note that as we were talking about this, you wanted to come in with another tech-heavy subject, and I'm like, no.
Oh, folks,
no.
I wanted to put you to sleep talking about CAN bus communication.
Yes.
I wanted to get in and just absolutely deep dive into the most arbitrary, little minutia-driven, multi-ground, low-voltage pulse width.
Which we will get there, just not right now.
I literally was like, nope, we've just done 3 tech-heavy episodes. We're not doing it.
I wanted to just lull you to sleep, folks, about CAN bus communication in modern-day vehicles. I got voted down.
Real quick, Robert says their local parking lot requires a winch.
I think that's fair.
At the mall. And then we've got Matt saying, good morning. Sorry, I'm late. He better be sorry.
You better be.
Jeez.
So anyways, so are you going to start with Bellevue winches? You're going to start with PTO-driven winches? Come on, old man. Where do we start in history?
So I literally was thinking like...
Block and pulley.
He's going to want to talk about Bellevue winches.
You know I want to talk about Bellevue winches.
So the first winches were literally just dragging things with horses, which is what we were doing last week.
I love it when you're like, you want to go all the way back to the most...
Always.
He went
back to the horses.
Last time when we talked flat towing, he went back to towing and trailering in general.
With horses. Let's honestly,
Scott,
do you have a dream to own horses? Because
no.
Scott just wants to take
on every episode now.
Scott, he brings up horses every dang episode.
So anyway, so then we go into, it'd be great if these were somehow mechanicalized. So
mechanical horses.
So then we went to...
If he's not trying to like love and be intimate with vehicles, so he is daydreaming about horses.
His mechanical horses, is that like a merry-go-round or the carousel? He's got to have the mechanical horses
so
that go up and down.
They started with PTO driven.
They did have
winch.
the wagon ones on the carousel.
Which
we're off the rails. What can I say?
I'm gonna drag him back. So PTO is still like a big rig
still
recovery
today.
stuff.
Yes.
For the down low grunt.
Yes, we still actively use PTO driven winches. Joe, one of our foremost recovery individuals who's involved heavily with the business and is a great customer of ours, is a full-time recovery person out of Pittsburgh. And he uses, oftentimes he'll be in a rotator, and rotators are oftentimes still PTO driven.
Yep.
that mechanical advantage is massive compared to electrical.
And then we've sort of figured out that, well, okay, now you need a certain transmission or a certain transfer case to be able to drive this. You need more drive shafts. So someone was like, hey, I just need to electrify it. And the first thing they started with was starter motors.
Yeah, I would love to obsess on PTO-driven winches, but I think that we need not to for the vast majority.
That's why I'm just doing a quick
I know,
run through.
but I need to tell people we're not addressing them.
Yeah.
And if right now you have a PTO-driven winch sitting in the back of your barn and you're like, I'm going to put this on my Jeep, just don't. That's the
unless it's a CJ2A, then I support you. He wants to support you too.
I want to support you too, but God, it's so much easier just to put an electrical winch on your CJ2A.
Nate is asking if PTO means paid time off.
It could. That's how much time you're going to need to winch your Jeep out of the ditch.
Yes, block and tackle it.
And he's, back into those comments too. Nate had said he loves his Badlands Apex 12K winch. He does, however, recommend not losing the wireless remote before you even install it. There's that. There's Daddy Jeep saying he uses his winch to recover himself way more than other people. If you don't, wheel harder.
Yes, that is his mantra.
Fair. So anyways, we go into starter motor technology.
You know what? I'm going to stop because here's the thing. Both Rob and Joe know each other. I don't think Joe should wheel any harder than he already does.
That's fair.
And so for our listeners out there, if you're looking to follow people's escapades or understand the nature of some of the people that you too could be chatting with in the comments, I really think for the sake of Joe's marriage, he should not wheel harder because he wheels pretty darn hard.
It takes a lot to break
Rob
Super Duty
just
axles.
happens to wheel a buggy, and there is a difference there, folks, in wheeling
But
styles.
isn't Joe's basically a buggy at this point?
Well, he drives it like a buggy.
That's fair.
We've got Charles saying he's used his wish to recover his, and I'm assuming it means winch, to recover his tractor more than his Jeep.
That's clearly he meant winch, Jeff. Are you?
Well, maybe he's wishing.
I'm reading
his
the
winch.
comment.
Oh, okay.
Anyway.
We have to stop reading comments and actually talk about winches.
So
We are talking about winches.
And then that's when the Bellevue kind of hit the stage with their starter motor technology. The only downfall of that is a starter motor is only supposed to work for a brief minute.
Yes.
And we sometimes winch for long times.
Longs times.
So then
And you were complaining about my wish.
Also, Bellevue winches. So this would have been, something period correct for the, 50s, 60s, earliest 70s type era. And that's a generality. And there are exact dates and times out there.
Yep.
But the big thing is it didn't have kind of braking as we know
you
it.
let off the button, it just
Yeah. And
kept life more exciting.
and it didn't have reverse or it didn't have power out is what I should say. So
Joe O'Brien says, Joe who?
yes, exactly.
Yes.
So
then we get into the loved and adored 8274.
there is no other winch as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
Everything else is just an imitator of the 8274. If you don't know, now you know.
Yeah.
And the 8274 has such amazing
Pedigree.
devotees. Yeah, pedigree. And long story short, so much so that Warren had to re-release it in
A couple times.
yes.
Any anniversary Warren has just re-released the 8274.
Correct. And the big thing about the 8274 is it's kind of it looks vertical. For the average viewer, that's the one that kind of looks vertical. But most importantly, the mounting surface actually is
In the front.
front facing.
Yeah.
Yes. So you're actually pulling against your mounting surface. And so the bolts are simply friction kind of, I don't want to say friction fit by
They're
any
just
stretch.
they're resisting gravity.
Yeah, they're just resisting gravity versus when you are winching, you're actually winching your standard winch by all other means. You are actually winching against the sheer force of the hardware that has taken to affix the winch to the vehicle.
Yep. And the best use of 8274 is for decoration on a vintage CJ. Doesn't even need to work.
That's true.
And
it
if
doesn't
you
need
want
to be.
to nerd out, you can go into serial numbers and find out when your winch was born.
I am, in fact, in two 8274 groups. They are actively used. Actually, if you're watching any of the
the modifiers and the original ones.
correct.
Yep.
And if you're watching any of the kind of the competitive off-road events from Eastern Europe to Southern Russia to Egypt to wherever Asian markets, they actually actively use modified 8274.
Yeah, it kind of looks like at that point one of those big tractors they pull at the fairs where there's motors hanging off every direction. They've really taken it next level. But anyway,
it's a gear-driven assembly.
You if you want the deep dive, you can, and then you can also write Warren a letter, and I've heard they will send you a care package for your 8274.
They do, and they make all parts. 8274 is one of the few winches that's still made in the USA, and arguably almost all parts are available for the 8274 unless you get into some really obscure things. The other piece is you can actually have a Jeep branded 8274,
Yes.
which would have been a dealer manufacturer option.
And you too can have one with a sticker swap.
That's true.
So anyway,
That's true.
so then we go into our more traditional winches. Anybody that's been in the game for the last 25 years is going to recognize, again, they bolt sort of down on the bottom versus 8274. Then we can get into minutia of like, well, that one is restricting my airflow and it makes my vehicle overheat and yada, yada, yada. So now we've gotten into where we sink them into the bumper and all that good stuff.
Yeah, I think, again, I'm going to reinforce this is a 101. So if you're listening, watching, enjoying this particular program, this is a 101. We're not, Scott and I will absolutely nerd out with you if you want to reach out to us directly and email
we're
or
both
text.
on the 8274 groups.
Yes, and if you want to nerd out about PTO-driven winches or drums or windings, I can totally get into that and slay. That's not what this is.
Yes.
This is about putting a winch on your Jeep and going to the local meet and greet or weekend wheeling.
Speaking of which, so they're looking at all the many options of winches from 1,500 pounds to 18,000 pounds. How do they know which one they should use?
Well, my general sentiment to people would be 2.5 times the weight or load of your vehicle.
And that's not what you think it weighs. That's what it weighs.
That's correct. So this is your call to action to go weigh your Jeep, right? Yes. So we can do generalities, and so I think that's valuable to say that the vast majority of the Jeep and off-road community is for what we produce and what we share is a generality, the bell curve of consumers, right? And then it is a degree of your responsibility to deep dive yourself, but we're happy to go down that path with you if you need us to. But realistically, like air pressure, I can give you a generalization. This is what the broad majority of people do. So realistically speaking, it is my general opinion that the majority of Jeeps weigh around 4,500 pounds, give or take a few hundred pounds.
Mm-hmm. Which means an 8 to a 9.5 works for most of our TJ, YJ, CJ vehicles.
Correct.
But when we get into JKs, especially for more doors for other people.
Yes, 4 doors for more people.
Wow, Scott.
He wanted to make that the after hours.
I did, but I resisted. Anyway, then we should get into a little bit more of a serious winch.
A robust pulling power. Yes. And realistically, this is where the 10,000 and 12,000 pound winches really kind of make their mark in our community, right? Yep. And so this is where we get into the heavier JKs, the JLs, and certainly the JTs.
Yep.
This is where we get all excited around 10 and 12,000 pound winches.
And I've seen people with JTs go even above and beyond depending on how overlandy they are.
Oh, without question. The other piece is a generality is cheaper winches tend to kind of market themselves or exemplify their immediate pulling power. So this is where I see a lot of the Amazonian winches coming in on JTs. And again, it's specific JTs because I think there's a lot of JT owners who go to their local social pages. Whatever it is going on there, folks, there's a lot of misinformation, largely on the I mean, it's all over the internet. That is, of course, the world we're living in.
Yeah.
But JT owners are more surrounded by
nothing
it.
looks sweeter than like an 18K winch, but the cable is equivalent to a 9K winch.
Yeah, right. And so you're going onto these forums and they're like, well, I've got a 1-ton JT Gladiator, and so I need a 18,000, X, Y, and Z. And fortunately, our Amazon markets will support you in that.
Mm-hmm.
I won't.
Now here's a piece, and this is just
this is from a 1-ton Gladiator saying this. Just saying.
1-ton Gladiator owner. I'm going to again throw out a broad statement. When we do cheaper alternatives, and I'm going to relate this to tires. I'm going to relate it to winches. It's cheaper for a reason, and you have to sacrifice something somewhere. And so, like a cheaper tire that might have, be made out of a less quality rubber, they add more radial bands to reinforce it. A winch, when it is an affordable 14 to 18,000 pound, because that's what we're talking, like a tow truck operator should have a couple of those on the back of their sling bag.
And they're going to be thousands of dollars.
They're going to be thousands of dollars.
Probably three-ish.
At least.
Starting.
For commercial grade.
At least. That's
so
starting. I agree.
When you're finding one for $500...
There's some, they have given up something. Now, in order for them to give it that weight rating, they will give you a kind of a finite measurement at which they have made that determination. So typically speaking, that 12, 14, 16, 18,000 pull is based on some configuration. They don't actually have to super disclose unless they are trying to meet particular industry standards.
But most are the first wrap off the drum.
And
it's for a brief second.
It's a single line pull for a very short period of time.
Yes.
They do not have a robust duty cycle. And that is what is going to be really important for the average consumer, understanding what sets winches apart via price point is largely going to be duty cycle and longevity.
And really the biggest takeaway from this is we're not telling you not to buy a cheap winch, but just have your expectations appropriate. If you want to experience the winch life and put one on your Jeep and go pull some bushes out of your yard and try to pull a house when it gets stuck in a field, then that's fine, but just be okay when it breaks and it no longer functions.
Like your purple strap.
I'm going to actually say I'm not okay with you putting an Amazonian 18,000 pound winch on your Jeep. If you're that guy, I'm going to be like, you're that guy. And I support people being that guy or that gal in life. That's okay. But I'm definitely going to judge you. So we're on the same page.
The other thing is the pulling bushes or trees out is something that, depending on your type of winch, maybe you shouldn't do that. I've seen plenty of times where the cable flies back at people because
That's true. They need to learn how to use the winch.
Yep.
All I was trying to say is
and the difference between a steel cable and a synthetic.
Absolutely.
Well, we're going to get there. We're going to get there in a gross.
I mean, the best way I can explain is I had a cheap winch on my ATV. I totally abused it, totally broke it, and that's where I learned. And it was kind of okay that it was a $89 Harbor Freight winch at that time because it didn't cost a lot of money to learn.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't have a big thing. That's all I was trying to explain.
I think what's super valuable is I'm not having any consideration about price point on winches. Like that's not really something other than the fact that I think that it's fair to say that around $3,000 is a starting price point on a commercial winch. I support you in buying a $500 to $800 winch all day long. What I don't support is you buying a 500 to 800, 18,000 pound winch for your Jeep. That's simply
doesn't
means
make sense.
that you are uneducated. You have not taken time to educate yourself, and you're just buying
the fad.
You're buying because you think you're buying something you're not.
And
I don't
sadly,
know.
winches are something that there is a fad. Like if you go on and you'll see even the cheap ones have to have a wireless remote now. They're trying to put synthetic on them really early in the price point. They try to have flashy colors and fancy fairleads.
Very, very ergonomic and
Covered.
pleasing body designs.
Yep.
I mean, here's the thing, folks. I mean, back in the day, a winch, I mean, which is at its most basic configuration, is a motor, which is an electric motor. Again, we're focusing largely on the electric. Again, the 8274 is gear driven, so there's gears on one side of it. But you basically have a motor and then a drum.
Mm-hmm.
And in that motor, there is a series of windings, maybe a base gear reduction.
There's
And
usually a planetary of some sort.
there's a planetary of some sort.
Increases torque multiplication, same way your transfer case does for low range.
Right.
The biggest difference I've seen, because I've actually torn apart the winches I break, is the cheaper ones will have plastic or nylon gears inside them, which are about as strong as you can imagine.
Yep.
Step up from that is these sintered or cast gears, which are, yay, they're metal, but not much better. That's what breaks.
Right.
The motor will keep motoring. The drum will still be a drum. The planet and the gearing will just come apart.
Right. And then ultimately, all you got to do is, much like an electric motor of any other sort, you basically have to give it power. And that's what that control box is you either have, positive power in one direction and the windings go one way.
And literally at one time that was done with solenoids and a really complicated looking wiring schematic with big cables. And at this point, we've done solid state stuff that can do it with relays relatively easy.
Yes.
And half the size and half the weight.
And so original winches, so for an example, the Warn M8, which is also a USA made winch, has this, and it's electric, which would be appropriate for the it's electric. The
M8, see, this goes too far.
I understand that
It's
somebody
electric.
had to.
So-
I just didn't expect it to be you.
So the biggest
I mean, he threw it up, and then I had to run with it.
Well, yeah,
did.
of course you did.
So
the M8 is very simple.
I love the M8 because it means something to me. It means that you have an understanding and appreciation for the Spartan and kind of rugged nature that Jeep was.
You know what M8 don't need? Fancy covers.
The M8 don't need your sass. I mean,
No.
it doesn't apologize to anybody. It's, again, US. Typically, there is actually now for price point specific, there is an overseas M8000 available, but Warren literally, last I knew, had both. And if you were undiscerning, the only thing that sets them apart is about $1,000. Otherwise, they write and read the same the same way. One is $2,000, and one was.
And with that said, I've
$800.
again torn apart my entry level Warren, and inside they're pretty darn good. They have to have a certain quality to have the big W on the front of them.
Sure. And so I think it is a value to mention that, over the course of the years, obviously Warren is one of the largest originators in our specific market in off-road industry. But that is, Ramsey has focused heavily on the commercial grade market and military contracts. And then Mile Marker came on and has, Mile Marker, one of the engineers at Mile Marker, was a huge driving force in this kind of waterproof submergible winch market that Smitty built, 100% robbed from them.
With waterproof switches.
100%. And so Mile Marker certainly had its heyday and kind of engineering.
And I would say that's our first mousetrap of trying to be better than the other winch without doing anything fancy. Because really, if we're down to it, any winch can be dunked in water and taken back out, and it will continue to work.
That's absolutely correct.
Now, should you clean it out and take care of it? Yes, just like you should your starter after you go and swim in water past your headlights. No one ever does, but you should.
Right.
And a little gasket maker between the motor and the case doesn't really make a hill of beans of difference.
No.
Just saying. Especially when your electronics aren't waterproof.
Smitty belt. I'm just going to keep putting it out there. Here's the thing. If you are a person who put a Smitty belt on your Jeep back 2015, maybe 2018, I just recognize that you went to Four Wheel Parts, and that's the marketing that you subscribe to.
Yep.
That's, it's kind of in a similar capacity when I see the 14 to 18,000 pound winch on the front of a Gladiator.
I would even argue that they didn't necessarily go to Four Wheel Parts, but they were on Quadratech or one of those big sites that just push.
Was a mass marketing, a kind of a cookie cutter design. Now, the XRC H2O or X2, whatever, they did. That winch did work. And so in their defense, it did work. The switches went bad. 100%.
And that's another thing. Again, when you buy an off winch, super winch or any of those kind of things, if you go and break it, you pretty much have a boat anchor. You're not going to go get parts for it. Same way with Smitty
So Super Winch was a really reputable winch builder in the 70s and 80s at one time.
Once upon a time.
And this is also valuable for us to note, folks, that many of the winch manufacturers that it's even Smitty built of sorts, it was a brand that was here based in the States, right? And then as global markets prevailed, and I support global trade.
The race to the bottom on pricing.
The race to the bottom on pricing affected our consumer experience. And if you entered the market somewhere in the race to the bottom, you don't have any other perspective. You don't get to know what it was like before we were inundated with these crappy knockoffs of name brand products simply because they were trying to advertise to a price point. I didn't have a winch 30 years ago because I couldn't afford one until I found an old stinking Ramsey that I could kind of play with because I was in the mindset at that time, I needed a good quality one, and the global market winches had just started to come on the market.
You could get parts for that Ramsey, and you could clean it up, and you could fix it, and that kind of stuff. Where even with the Smitty belt, was one of the biggest selling winches. I don't know if it still is or not. Don't care.
Right.
They have evolutions. They keep adding vowels to the end of it and letters. And they are different than the previous version. So
correct. You're not going to buy service components for it.
Right. You break it. It was cheap. You go, well, that was fun. And you throw it away and you start over.
And that race in the 70s was Warren and Super Winch and Mile Marker and Ramsey. Mm-hmm. They were authentically selling winches that could be rebuilt. They were serviceable. They were intended not to become boat anchors.
Yes.
Post use,
And really, when they start cheapening up, again, like I said, there's motor quality. You have your gear train. That you even get down to coatings and protecting from salt. That's one thing that I can speak from experience. That's where Warren cheapens up on their entry-level winches, is the coatings are a little to be desired.
Yep, you get more corrosion on the outside of the winch. In the comments here, we've got Nate saying he's got a new Warren VR Evo 10S, but he's not sure about stepping down to 10K from the Apex 12K on his Gladiator. Just to put it out there, I have a 10K on my Gladiator, and I have winched many vehicles out, more random trucks and cars than I have
That's fair.
Jeeps. Just on the sides of the roads.
And other than
parking
being
lots,
a little,
whatever.
little dirty and corrody from driving it a lot, it's
It
functioning.
works.
And if you're cheap
and
like me,
I have recovered myself with it. I've recovered Scott with it. Like it works.
You had to put that in there.
Well, he did, didn't he? That was an unnecessary detail.
Wait,
that was an unnecessary
He
detail.
didn't let me finish. And Scott has the same winch and has recovered my Gladiator with it
I have.
off his JK when he had the JK.
And I'm so cheap that I took it off. We took it off the JK from the previous or the new owner of the JK, and it was tired and corroded and stuff. And I'm so cheap. I took it apart, inspected it all, cleaned it, sandblasted it all, put it all back together, and it is currently on my JT.
Oh my gosh.
True.
So, and here's the thing.
Well, there you go, Nate.
And
Don't worry about it. It works.
previously, the winch cases were, primarily a steel or, a brushed aluminum body that was, again, a quality aluminum housing. Yeah. And so corrosion externally was less of an issue.
Where now we're more of a pot metal aluminum, which is powder coated, but kind of a cheap powder coat, so it comes off in sheets. I can tell you why.
And we're seeing it across multiple manufacturers. Now, I guess as we progress through this, we've kind of outlined some of the mechanisms of which they work. I want to make sure that we do talk about modern air and how it applies to people, and also the wiring capacity, or not wiring capacity, but wiring in general. I suppose the last piece I should mention, the 10,000 and 12,000 piece, in my opinion, and I absolutely support people on the Apex 12,000, the Harbor Freight. I ran Harbor Freight winches, and this sounds so dumb. I ran Harbor Freight winches before they were cool.
Yep.
And
they're a great trailer winch.
Yeah, we've had them on trailers for years, long before the Apex, the Badlands stuff branding came out and was utilized and marketed. Because ultimately, this conversation about race to the bottom, when we started the global trade market in the 90s, and we started to see an inundation of affordable winches. Again, they weren't affordable previously. That's why you had a tow truck company, and quite frankly, Jeeps. Not every single Jeep owner had a winch on the front of their vehicle.
No.
It just wasn't what it is.
You had a winch buddy.
You did. You had a guy in your group. In fact, folks, it was a talking point of mine when a club run was going to happen. I mean, I was still in 2012 to 2014 when I was doing like how-to clinics and stuff, and you were going to go out. The recommendation was that of your party, you had at least one winch-equipped Jeep.
Yep.
Now it's almost like having, floor mats in your vehicle to have a winch on your Jeep.
Real fast, since you mentioned trailering. Anyways, Jeannie is in the comments saying now that she's done trailering. Hi, everyone, and hope you had a great weekend.
Mm-hmm.
And then
hi.
Nate was going, his 12K is going to go to his kid's TJ then, and he just wants to put the fancy new one on his Gladiator.
Mm-hmm.
And then Charles says, I got a Tractor Supply winch that's 8 years old.
Absolutely. And so
really my biggest problem I have with current Harbor Freight winches is the switch they give you right at the battery to turn it on and off, and the big fuse relay thing that they try to do. And if you look at any other brand, you just hook directly to the battery and that's okay. So to me, that means that they don't have confidence in your use. They don't have confidence in their electronics having power all the time, something there. But you cannot effectively fuse a winch and then use it to the inch of its life, because you will burn something down. Yes, things get hot. Yes, cables can smoke. All that kind of stuff can happen. But to me, that's just being not realistic right out of the gate for the Harbor Freight winch. Other than that, I think it's a good product. Obviously, they have ran with I need synthetic, I need a fancy hook, I need some plastic covers to make the winch look cool.
yes,
They're
brilliant as far as marketing
on their Apex line. You get a lot for a reasonable cost.
Yes.
With that said, I was shocked at the $12K price that we're basically in cheap Warren territory, in my opinion. And at that point, I'm just going to buy a Warren, just because then I know the brand I'm buying it from. Where Harbor Freight in 3 to 5 years, they're going to change the winch again, and that winch you have is going to fade off into the sunset.
Right. It certainly has been their modus operandi at this point. You know what I mean? That is what they tend to do.
You were talking about the talking points with clubs and stuff, and Rob is saying Bantam Black Trails require a winch. So it went from, somebody in the group needs to have a winch to, nope, if you're on this trail, you need a winch.
Here's an interesting question
need to be
for
able
Rob.
to self-recovery.
Is a size requirement for black trails? Do you have to have a certain size winch? Because I know a guy, now he's a little bit of a strange duck, but he has a 5,000-pound winch on his CJ5.
Yes.
And he brings many blocks and tackles. And if he needs to pull more, he puts 2 or 3 or 4 parts in it.
Well, and so let's kind of talk about that for a second, because we can't do 2 parts, and I love this subject.
And I still want to talk about how we put it on your vehicle.
Correct. We need to talk about that, and we need to talk about how winching used to be done. And so back in the day, all of your Peterson rags, your JPs, it specifically stands out to me that was largely Australian markets, and there was these really robust kind of world travelers. I remember guys going into South America.
Where you really have to make it work with what you brought.
Correct. Where you that the concept of prepare to self-recover is not just something you say, but something you live by.
Yeah.
Right. And you might be out in the middle of the desert with no tree, with no rock, and no other person, and you're going to have to be able to create a land anchor to winch off of. Additionally,
I gotta tell you, it's almost a little bit like hiding underneath my desk or rolling when I'm on fire. I thought that was going to be a bigger problem growing up from the magazine.
Quicksand.
I thought,
dude.
I thought I needed a land anchor for a long time.
I was convinced I was good. I know how to dig a land anchor because I obsessed over it, because Peterson and Rick Payway told me I needed to know how to dig a land anchor.
Yes.
In my Land Rover off in Australia.
Yes.
You know? And
I've got to tell you, there's always been a tree or some other unmovable object so far in my life.
Well,
I want to know if somebody has dug a land
in.
anchor, if one of our listeners has dug a land anchor authentically because you had to, I'm going to give you a t-shirt. I want you to email us. And you have to.
There was one time I could have done it, and we'd used other vehicles and winched them into it, just slowly making headway until we could strap to something else, and did not dig a land anchor.
Oh my gosh. You're absolutely right. It's like quicksand or any of these other childhood
Pop,
issues.
drop, and roll.
So, yes, or hiding under our desk in case of a tornado.
Yes. Capper keepers.
Land anchors. Okay. So I want to address your commentary about Harbor Freight and their self-setting relay. I absolutely think that it as a corporate legal jargon issue, that they include that as an insulatory manner against the general consumer using their product.
Real fast, Rob did answer and says they do not have it documented, but they did have a Jeep with an ATV winch once that they turned away.
Of course.
Good for you, Rob. I support
they did.
you.
Of course they did. But here's the thing about winching. And so back in the day, and again, I'm going to get stuck on the old school stuff to the new age. They didn't have tow trucks and whatnot, didn't have the robust, nature winches that we currently have. What they did was they did mechanical advantage through snatch blocks or
which is
block and
basically
tackle
a pulley system.
through a pulley system. And so
it slows it down, but it multiplies your force.
The mechanical advantage of the pulley system.
And so most, if not all of these weight ratings, whether we say it's an 8,000, a 9, a 10, 12, so on and so forth, is a single line direct pull for a short period of time. And that is how they rate the winch. There are standardized rating processes, but if that winch manufacturer doesn't give a flying fig about having a particular certification, which is enter the 8,000 pound winch conversation, you can say that, yes, it pulls 18,000 pounds for 6 seconds on a single line pull. That's all they need to do, and then they market it. They can back up their supporting documentation. As they say, yeah, I pulled 18,000 pounds as a single line straight pull. Nothing broke, and it was 7 seconds. Unless they're trying to actually do an appropriate accreditation certification process, there's not a standardized body that stops people from just selling junk per se.
Especially when everybody's worried about line speed and wireless remotes and how pretty the winch is.
Yeah. So there's quite a few people who can utilize, and so back in the day, they did utilize these pulleys or snatch blocks to add, mechanical advantage.
It's a turbo for your winch.
Yeah, an increase. So it slowed down the speed, but kind of simple physics. It made you be able to pull anything so long as the bolts didn't break. And honestly,
yeah.
Which
is
bolts,
why
there's less stress on them.
And the 8274 is actually an 8K winch.
Right.
Back then, you just added
snatch blocks and pulleys
and got it done.
In fact, there's a guy on the internet. His name is Matt. He was less popular than the Western version, but still, pretty popular. And he got a namesake for doing recoveries in the Southeast. And he did some of the most gnarly recoveries I've ever seen, but he would have no problem running, 3 or 4 snatch blocks and tripling or quadrupling his winch line. And it was amazing to watch that happen.
Mm-hmm. Well, even going back to the basics of understanding pulley systems and how that works, rope rescue in the fire department, we would use multiple pulley systems to allow us to pull people up out of ravines.
Did you use a horse?
There was no horses involved.
I had to. Did he pull a horse out of the ravine? That's
no.
what. And Joe O'Brien's bringing up Holmes winches as well. There's another commercial grade winch manufacturer. There's a bunch of these old ones that I can totally nerd out on. But as far as kind of creating redundancy in the line pull, and then the self-resetting again relays of sorts that the Harbor Freight comes with.
They're circuit breakers.
Yeah. How would you like to encourage people to wire? Because we've seen the good, the bad, and the ugly. We've seen people try to fuse them.
Yeah. Don't fuse it. Don't put the massive will short out in anything it gets close to circuit breaker block. Attach it to the battery. Try to route your cables away from abrasion.
So here's the challenge then, right? Because I get a lot of safety conscious customers calling in or showing up with their Jeeps or whatever. And they're like, okay, but if I'm going to use a 0-aught gauge wire or 2 or 4, kind of that starts to get too thin on us.
I say no winches are come with a single aught.
Right. So if I'm going to use that big wire, you're going, okay, well, you want me to go direct to the battery and then travel all the way out to the front or to the rear, depending. Mm-hmm. What happens if it starts to, make contact with the frame, right?
And that's when you have to appropriately route it. You have to appropriately sheath it. It's still the best way to, if you're going to actually use the winch, attach it directly to the batteries, because you as you add things between the winch and the battery, you're increasing resistance, you're increasing places for it to be loose to create heat.
Increasing. I heard it.
That's whatever. Anyway, and that will actually cause a fire when you go to ask the winch to work, because now we are causing more spots to heat up.
Jugga Jeeper says they would run 3 or 4 snatch blocks on some semi-recoveries. Why didn't we use snatch blocks for your house?
Did you have a snatch block?
Well, because I didn't bring the snatch blocks that I have, and 2, it was way more fun to daisy chain Jeeps.
It was absolutely, but...
So, and the rotator was really cool. He used snatch blocks. So
The only snatch block I have is for my ATV. So
all right.
You
Anyways,
use a purple strap
I
to try
have
to pull a
multiple
house.
snatch blocks
Do you
here
really
at the
care
shop.
about a little tiny snatch block at that point?
Anyways, anywho's,
Holy crap.
understand that many of the affordable winch manufacturers, I'm going to reinforce this, are not sheathing the cables. They're just they're saving pennies where they can.
absolutely, and the wire material and the actual jacket around the wire.
Yes,
There is so many ways they're cheapening up these winches.
and arguably that jacket or insulation or sheathing specifically on the winch wire itself has to be a priority or concern for you, because as you are doing a sustained severe duty cycle, meaning I'm doing a lot of winching, you're going to build up heat in that wire. That's a given. We don't get to pretend that doesn't exist. You're going to build up heat. As heat happens in that wire, insulation naturally thins.
Yes.
And so it's going to become more pliable and it's going to naturally thin. If it has already been brazing, rubbing on, I see a lot of people run them through their grills. Back in the day when we had metal grills, if you're running them through a core support of the radiator, you're running it down along the frame rail, and now you've got something. Maybe you had a cruddy. Oh God, what did we see? We saw somebody who went to another shop and got inner liners installed.
Yep.
When they installed the inner liners, first of all, inner liners oftentimes have sharp edges, and
almost always.
That's why they're so cheap, because they're not a finished product. So if you've got cheap inner liners, you could have a sharp edge. And Dose. They had ran tech screws through the inner liner, and it was protruding out the other side of the inner liner. So the self-tapping screw was protruding.
Just not being thorough. And again, when you go to use a winch at its limit or a lot, either one, you should be inspecting your equipment. You should be inspecting the cable. You should be inspecting the wire. You should be servicing it correctly. I know most people don't, but that's when problems arise.
We've seen the winch wires too, where it's half the wire's gone and it's corroded, and we're going, how is this not burnt down yet?
And so that's the big thing. I encourage you to go out, and if you haven't looked at your winch wiring recently, look at it now, just to ensure that that you can, if a disaster can be avoided, that you are right. And again, you're going to want good, solid connections at the battery, because if it's a loosey-goosey, anywhere that you do not have a good connection, or you have some abrasion, or you have that corrosion, you're going to create more resistance.
Yeah.
Increased resistance creates more heat. It's an electrical
really,
version.
Again, at the end of the day, the Harbor Freight, they don't care about if you actually get the vehicle out. They don't care how you routed the wire. That's why they give you an on-off switch at the battery, because that's an isolation for their legal team.
Yes.
To not get sued when you run it past your tech screw and their cheap wire burns your Jeep down.
Right. And you don't blame the tech screw. You don't blame the inner liners that you bought that were flopping around in the wind and eventually got caught on the wire itself. And the worst part, folks, we speak to you from a position where we've physically seen all of this.
Yeah.
We saw a winch wire on a customer of ours, and they're like, man, we put that on there. He's a smart character, and he felt he did a very good job. I believe when he had originally installed it, it did. And then as he continued to use it, it loosened, it moved, and it got into a position where it started to actually kind of cut into the insulation, and then it fused itself basically to the ground, if I recall.
Yep.
And so we were if he would have used that winch hard, probably another time or two,
Bad things happen.
you would have had an absolute dead short where we would have Arky Sparky welded those wires together. And from a position, I had a family member who Arky Sparky and welded his battery to his hood. The entire vehicle goes down. Once you complete that circuit, there's no going back. That's just the nature of the beast. And so, that's bad news bears.
Yeah, but again, that's showing you where they're cheapening up the product, how they're making.
How are they getting to that price point to race to the bottom?
It's back to the great parts, great responsibility kind of conversation.
That too.
Yes.
Speaking of that, so how am I going to put this thing on my Jeep? So we have multiple ways, and again, this is kind of the Wild West. They kind of expect you to figure this out yourself.
Not all winches are made for all the aftermarket bumpers either.
That too.
Just sharing that. So if you already have a winch or you're thinking about buying a bumper or vice versa, you really need to verify that those winches and bumpers have been intended to be utilized together.
And
sometimes you can modify them, but sometimes you can't. They're just not going to work
and
together.
sometimes they expect you to modify the Jeep when you go to put a winch on it that you didn't understand when you actually bought the bumper. If you are lucky enough to have a Rubicon bumper on the JK and newer, they expect you to buy a tray and remove the bumper to put the tray on. It's not yes, you're winch ready, but you need more parts.
Oh, that was the biggest misnomer. Everybody who had a Rubicon or a three-piece steel bumper was like, I've got a winch bumper. And it's like, nah. It's
you have a bumper that can become a winch bumper.
Yes. You've got a bumper that could become a winch bumper.
If you have a plastic bumper on your new Jeep, are you in trouble, Jeff, or you have options?
You have options, but they're not great options. There's limitations to those options, and that is basically you can put a plate over your bumper.
Yep.
And now your winch line is higher, so now your winch is impeding on your grill and your airflow is restricted. Ask me how I know.
Yeah.
But you can
do it. That's how I run mine.
It's a stepping stone option, and you've been running yours for a couple of years now.
Yep.
And again, you've already talked about how much you've used your winch.
Correct.
And if you want your winch to be a tongue that sticks out like 8 feet in front of your vehicle, you can.
Yeah. So
he's done this.
I intentionally. So I had the opportunity. We released last year was a company called Born Off-Road, and Born is, my opinion, is created to be kind of a competitive with a Smitty built brand, kind of a catch-all of off-road accessories and options. And it's a subsidiary of Mishimoto, which is traditionally a pretty good manufacturer and pretty responsive to the off-road industry. So, decided to test out their product.
And they
really
checked
liked
all
it.
the boxes. They had a pretty cover. They had synthetic cable.
Colored synthetic cable.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, that's right there into people's hearts. And then they have a wireless remote.
They have a wireless remote. It's nice, ergonomic, lots of, pretty easy to use and understand. It's got a unique design to it. It's
Price
got a great,
point similar to the Warn VR Evos.
Yep, similar to kind of the market in general. Really, really happy with the product in general. But I couldn't just mount it normally. I wanted to,
even though we had bumpers.
Oh, yeah, 100%. Could totally have made it make more sense. But I went with the kind of, again, something that I had read about or seen when we were younger, thinking that we were going to also be digging, digging ground anchors, was the removable trays that insert into a 2-inch hitch receiver.
I remember people were like, "Oh, now I can use it on both ends of my Jeep."
That's 100% why I did it. I was operating under the pretense that I would put it on this tray, and the advantage to that is that in theory, you can attach it from the front of your vehicle and move it to the back.
Because he has a hitch in the front.
And then I did a forward-facing 2-inch hitch receiver on the front of my vehicle. And I actually took a JL bumper and reliefed it to hook onto the JK. So again, that conversation about plastic bumpers, I went ahead and hung it off the front of the Jeep. I think we weighed it between the tray, and I used the Harbor Freight tray because, again, we're not lighting the world on fire for what the product is.
We're not moving houses anymore.
Well, I wouldn't be against it. And
Maybe we use snatch blocks.
and so I could put it on the back of my Jeep. In theory, I could take it and I could go put it on another vehicle. Now, the downside, as we have been talked about or shared, is that when you're creating length over that heavy gauge wire, it creates resistance and therefore makes the winch less efficient. And so there are these things called Anderson plugs. If you're in the plowing community, you know that an Anderson plug is this kind of heavy duty. It allows you to connect heavier gauge wire together. Now, I think that this particular winch actually is 2 gauge. And a lot of winches are actually 2 gauge. But if you're going to run, 20 to 22 feet, you
Need to step up the size.
you need to step up the sides. Now, I will be factual that Rough Country literally sells a kit for you to attach Anderson plug winch cables on the back of your recovery vehicle or plow vehicle. And we've sold them to plow truck drivers who want this. The idea is that you're going to use this in a very limited capacity. You're going to use it in a situation where you're looking to do a straight line pull utilizing snatch blocks. You're not doing an off the side pull. If you're doing a side pull, obviously now you're putting a bunch of load over that 2-inch, hitch receiver and hitch mount. It's a very finite manner and space. It's kind of like talking about Jeff going, there's options, but they're not great options.
Right.
You're not going to beat out the heavy attachment of a purpose-built bumper. That Rubicon bumper with the winch tray that they have that sits down inside the frame rails, which gives you a heavy, serious mounting points.
It's even with the frame. There's a lot to like about it, and that's how mine is currently done. And that's what actually made me think about this topic is we literally have all 3 at the shop most times that you can see the very different ways that this can be done.
Right.
With its pros and cons.
Right. And yours is going to be the highest utilization with best vehicular efficiency. Jeff's is going to be good utilization with a depreciated vehicle efficiency. Mine is the worst. I pull no punches. Right? Like when I made the video, and I still stand by it, I have a lot of fun, and I get a kick out of the fact that when I'm at the mall or Walmart with my winch hanging out there, because really that's the most I ever get to do with my winch. Me and Robert Seaman, we understand.
Yeah.
That realistically, I get a lot of people who are like, oh, looking at this weird tongue, this apparatus that's hanging out at the front of my Jeep. It doesn't make sense. It's hanging. It's 1.5 feet off the front of the vehicle. It creates weight way out there.
But I think what's interesting is when you look at exactly how you described it, price point as well. Yours would be the cheapest way to go.
Yeah.
Mine's middle of the road. His is the most expensive way to go.
Potentially. And here's the thing is that mine would have further utilization. If you are a fisherman or you lived in a coastal area where you were going to run across the sand, but ultimately, I've seen some really nice pole holders or fishing gear holders that go into the 2-inch receiver. You would be able to do that, and the winch could hang out in the back or in the trunk.
You put your spare tire on the front.
You can put your spare tire on the front. And
it won't be 1982 again.
100%. I love that.
I know
you
do.
And so there are things that do make sense for a very finite group of people. It would not be something I recommended to the average person who goes, hey, I'd like to be a weekend warrior. This doesn't make sense to you the way that I'm doing it. But I have used it effectively. I've done not exactly straight line pulls, but off center pulls, but you would not be able to do a left or a right pull, right? In theory, a winch can pull 180 degrees, roughly speaking, based on the fair lead. There are roller fair leads and Haas fair leads based on synthetic winch line is a Haas fair lead. And typically speaking, your steel lines are going to be on a roller fair lead, that more traditional type of fair lead.
And if you have cable, you need to inspect it often. You need to have a pair of gloves with you because it will bite you.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to winch with some smarts because it is got a lot of energy if it was to break.
And once it starts fraying, it starts to be questionable and needs to be replaced.
Now, it can be repaired. It can be rewoven. It can be shortened. But we really don't do that anymore as a folks. We have more affordable alternatives, and we typically just replace the wire.
Absolutely. And then you can now get synthetic cable pretty cheap. If it was to break, the hook is your most dangerous part, and that should be attached to something. The cable breaks, which I've done. It just falls to the ground.
It does still have some energy involved in it, but it is far less than steel. It is the same reason why we don't use chains for recovery.
Yes.
Chain has all of this potential energy, and when it snaps, it goes just flying. We talked about that last week in the flat towing. Mm-hmm. Stainless steel cable has yet more energy, and the synthetic line has the least amount of recovery.
And speaking of which, that's another thing I've seen them cheapen out on is they use steel cable, not stainless cable.
I was going to say.
Some.
Yes. Yep. And steel cable should be treated with some type of protectant, like a fluid film. Again, that's what we used to have to do. As if you see an old school tow truck in the boneyard, you're going to see that cable is all flashed over. That's because that would have been one of the things that they did. They would have been responsible for oiling their cables, replacing periodically, and maintaining their cables. They would pull the cable out. They would have to inspect it. That's when we took pride in our occupations or in our expectations. Now it's this fast-paced, consumer-based market. And I get it, folks. I do. As far as synthetics are concerned, I still value the Spydura winch cable by Warren as the cream of the crop.
That's awesome.
I do genuinely believe that that's still one of the best winch lines. However, I mean, overseas markets are great at producing unique products, and so there is a lot of good synthetic stuff available.
And
so I don't have a lot of reservations.
Synthetic has a lifespan. Sun does not do nice things to it.
Keep it covered.
It's kind of like tires. It will age out.
And an affordable synthetic will age out faster. It'll break down faster in UV exposure. So if it's just there hanging out in the front of your Jeep and you're like, I've never used this, but you've had it on there for 12 months, it might already start to fade.
Absolutely. Especially if you go with the cool color.
Especially. There's so much to this particular one, and I really appreciate the suggestion as far as a generalization. We encourage you to have a winch. I'm not down talking it by any standpoint. I just for reiteration and summation, roughly 2 to 2.5 times the actual weight of your vehicle is authentically where your winch cable should be. Check the specs as how they have rated their winches. Single line poles, duration, so on and so forth. Be realistic about how you are going to use your winch. If you think that you are a person who's going to become competitive with your Jeep, you're going to want to pay for a winch that has a more robust lifespan. By today's standards, the vast majority of people are choosing synthetic over stainless steel winch line, but choose whether it's steel or stainless. And make sure that you are choosing a brand that you believe has the appropriate volition and follow through from a consumer standpoint.
Now, I know we didn't get into how to winch and techniques and things like that. Maybe in a future episode, we're not going to do it next week, but maybe in a future episode, we'll break down more about how to do recovery, how you should set the vehicle up, and how you could do it safely.
Absolutely.
Ground anchors and off straight line poles.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like we need to do a ground anchor challenge here.
There's so many things that we would like to get to, but we have a lot of Jeeps to build, and we thank so many of our great customers and our Patreons and our listeners and viewers for ensuring that this brand continues to grow and take on all our daily challenges. Obviously, first and foremost, those physical Jeeps that we're responsible for building are our biggest and greatest priority at this moment. But as we continue our media pursuits, we're getting more and more demand. Maybe some of those challenges and late night episodes will become more of a realistic opportunity for us. But until then, we got a lot of Jeeps to build. So Jeep on.
Jeep on.
Jeep on. I just have to say the ground anchor thing, Scott's building has the best and most robust ground anchors, or will, out of anything I've ever seen.
Yeah,
that's the funniest code issue, and that I actually know the guy who's responsible for that and everything. I think that's just too much. Just too much.
We're not in the Midwest and Tornado Alley, so we don't need that.
I think Jogger Jeeper comment there about the Mini Cooper. I did need a winch on. We'd actually talked about just as insight. We'd actually talked about doing a follow-up video, just mounting up a dumb little like ATV winch on the Mini Cooper. Anything is an off-road vehicle once. So
that's true.
I enjoy the Mini too much as far as a little sporty runabout. But anyhow, speaking of weekend and personal things, unrelated necessarily to the Jeep life per se. Anything light your guys' world on fire?
Well, I know it was happy anniversary to Scott and Amy.
Oh, that's true.
Yep. Saturday was my 17th wedding anniversary. So after work, we
17th, huh?
Yep. Okay.
Just getting up there.
We took the 36, just the two of us, went to the beach, wandered around, found cool rocks, went home, grabbed the kids, stuffed them in the car, and we took Route 20 all the way to Erie and did some shopping. Then we had our Pamani Brothers cheeseburgers.
I was cracking up at your post. Pamani.
I knew I was spelling it wrong. I
didn't see it. I missed it.
He wrote Pamani Brothers.
Oh, wow.
It's whatever. Anyway, and it was just so cool to be on our way home. You know, obviously it's in the dark. And I'm like, we're in an 89-year-old car, just enjoying life. And so many people I know that have vintage cars are like, well, I got to be home before it's dark, and I got to have this and I got that. You're just not enjoying it the way it should be.
The way you should be enjoying it.
Yep. And, on the way home, we did come across a pretty bad wreck, and we had to figure out how to get around it. And big thanks to our first responders. We actually beat them there. We were probably the second car to pull up. And thank you to the people like Jeff that came up and was like, hey, you don't want to go past this accident scene. You want to turn around and go back, even though we had no idea where we were. Thankfully, we pulled out the phones and figured it out and took some twisty PA roads and were able to get up to 5 from 20 and continued home that way.
Beautiful drive too on a classic car.
Yeah.
And this time of year, amazing.
Yep. So
amazing.
That was pretty much in a nutshell my big weekend update.
Nice. I, as I've disclosed on air, and I'm having my 6 weeks is allowing football to be, part of my life again with my son and having that shared experience. So I've been trying to catch some hours in the evenings again. I feel like it's how I was with this business, I don't know, 5, 7, 8 years ago, where at any odd hour you can catch me here because I'm trying to get something little done, So I am trying to work on the Jeep that has the winch tongue, but I also have Rustington, the cheap Jeep, and I poked away at that this weekend as well a little bit. So I actually did get an opportunity. I was really hoping to get Rustington, despite the fact that he is 100% a basket case of a front axle. I really was hoping to get him out to Southington Off-Road this coming weekend. I just don't see that actually happening, though, based specifically on the seasonal life with my family, just with the challenges of, younger kids and, spouse, priorities as well.
So speaking of football with them, did you watch any NFL games with them?
Oh man, I got to be honest with you. We watched NFL, we watched College Game Day, we listened to the Guardians win the division.
Yeah, that was pretty sweet. That was a sweet way that they won it too.
It was super cool. And seal the deal. So it was a big weekend for a lot of that. Like I said, I was kind of a wheel in constant motion this weekend. Still haven't quite caught up on all the things here that I'm feeling that are critically important. But man, I feel like we're making strides. And so I appreciate and value that, from all the assistance from the guys. And like I said, by my ability to come in off hours, I'm really kind of enjoying what I've got to do Jeep wise again,
Yeah.
Hopefully you'll see me out there tearing up Rustington. If you don't know, it's this clapped out, because I love my pieces of junk. It's a clapped out 97, 98 TJ, 4-cylinder, automatic, Dana 35 rear end. I mean, is absolutely one of the most undesirable TJs that an individual can buy or own, and I'm just head over heels about it.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Till you break it and then fix it and then break it again. But my weekend was me recovering from the plague that Scott and Davey have passed around.
100%.
But the new laser that I talked about last week did arrive on Sunday. So I got to help get that set up for Kristen, even though it weighed a bajillion pounds and it was massive, and I had to lug that upstairs with no energy. But we got that set up for her. She got to play around with it, and really, really cool that it can do so many different things than what she was able to do before. The clear acrylic I thought was really, really fun. She did a couple pieces of clear acrylic to put on like the LED bases and light them up, and it turned out really good.
That's awesome.
So
Yeah, I saw the picture of the one. That's a really neat, creative expression or opportunity for her and for you guys.
yeah.
There's a lot that can be done with that. I think those are a neat gift.
And it came with its own enclosure, so I don't have to build an enclosure this
There
time.
you go. There you go. I was going to say, it's a really neat gift and or, thing that she'll be able to offer as part of her small business. And,
Yep.
Now that new laser's able to do it so effectively. Well, I think that kind of wraps us up, folks. We value you so much for being part of this program and for prioritizing listening to us. As I said, we've got a lot of Jeeps to attend to physically. Next week, we'll see you same time.
Same bat channel.
Same bat channel. Jeep on.
Jeep on.